I just read your annual letter that just came out this week, and let's dive into the banking crisis because you write a lot about it in there. You have been the Wall Street CEO, Jamie, at the middle of trying to steady this banking crisis. You're the one that Janet Yellen at Treasury has been calling. You've been meeting with these folks all weekend long for the past, month or so, trying to get a handle on this. Is the current banking crisis over?
Yeah. First, I want to say all the bank CEOs did it. So I may have been the first phone call, but everyone was on every call talking about ideas and what works. And they're all patriots and want to help, save the system and make it work better. And also to help the regional banks and community banks. So that people think the big banks benefited because deposits came. Well, deposits came. It's not what anyone wanted. This is not good for the banking system because we want the American public to have trust in all the banks. And we also completely acknowledge that community banks can do things we can't. And so, we try to support the system. And so we all came together. This is not 2008. Okay, this is much more limited. There are only a handful of banks that had this particular problem. They'll eventually be resolved one way or another. And I think then people should take a deep breath. In a week or two, a lot of these banks can be reporting earnings. I think they'll probably be pretty good. The Federal Reserve made some, bold, dramatic moves to help it easier for some of the issues they had. And I'm hoping it will resolve, rather shortly.
You're hoping.
But hoping.
But is the crisis over? You wrote in your letter, there will be repercussions for years to come.
Well, that's different. I think those repercussions are regulatory. I acknowledge, obviously when you have a problem, things need to change. But, I'm begging the regulators, let's just take a deep breath. There are hundreds of rules. You have to be very careful. What do you want in the banking system? What do you want out? How do you make it easier for community banks and regional banks? How do you reduce their costs, not increase their costs? But also make it safe. So if there are problems with held to maturity portfolios or uninsured deposits, let's fix them. Let's fix them thoughtfully. It's the mix of all the things we do. It's not whether you do one thing right or wrong. So,
do you expect more banks to fail this year?
I don't know, but if there are, honestly, they'll be resolved and it'll probably be the last of them. I think we're getting near the end of this particular crisis and fewer financial institutions. Remember in 2008, it was hundreds of institutions around the world. Far too much leverage. We don't have that. Huge problems in mortgage markets. We don't have that. This is nothing like that. And the American public shouldn't think that. This will resolve. And then we should go look at, what went wrong and fix it, in the light of day.
Well, so then what was it? If this is coming to an end, is this a situation like, Warren Buffett famously said, only when the tide goes out, you learn who's been swimming naked? Were these banks swimming naked?
Yeah. So I said there's hide in plain sight. Everyone knew about uninsured deposits. Everyone knew about interest rate exposure. Everyone knew about held to maturity portfolios. The only real difference was we called concentrated clients. So Silicon Valley Bank had, a handful of people who controlled 35,000 corporate accounts, and they just left. $140 billion or something over a course of 2 days. That's not happening to other regional banks. Well, they don't have that issue, nor do they have all these other issues. So it's only a handful that much offsides.
Okay, talk about the economy. You wrote a lot about this in your annual letter. Has this banking crisis, even though you think it's almost over, which I'm really glad to hear, though increased chances of a recession here?
Yes, but I look at it like it's not definitive. It's just like another weight on the scale.
Okay.
And think of it as, people have said it's like raising rates another 50 basis points or something like that. We are seeing people reduce lending a little bit, cut back a little bit, pull back a little bit. It won't necessarily force a recession, but it is recessionary.
Storm clouds ahead, you say maybe some for the economy?
Yeah, I mentioned the QT, higher inflation for longer, the war.
Okay.
Those are pretty strong things. If you look at history since World War II, we've not kind of faced it like that. It's still early in that war go on for longer. We don't really know the outcome of QT. I think we'll be writing about QE and QT for 50 years.
Quantitative tightening, quantitative easing.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can't just focus on the risk because you even write, if you do that, it clouds your judgment.
Yes.
You see a lot of positives in this economy. I mean, you talk about America's GDP, you think being more than 2x in 20 years. What's ahead that is good?
We're going to have, whatever we go through the next couple of years, America in almost every 10-year period, going back all through our history, is much better 10 years later than it was before. That includes 1940 to 1950. That includes 1930 to 1940. And so the health of America is the strength of its people, its human capital, its brain power, its capability, its capital markets. We have the widest, deepest, most transparent capital markets the world's ever seen. And that includes venture capital, private equity, media. We've got open media, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. But the most important than that is freedom of people to do what they want. Like if you're starting to be, so there's two wonderful ladies
Yes.
starting business here.
Yes.
It's that. That's at the heart of America, and that's still there. That has not gone away, and we should applaud it. I mean, we should sing. You know, I wrote in my letter, I talk about all the stuff we do to help society and communities and
Yes.
philanthropy and DEI. I said, but lest my Shirley forget, I'm a red-blooded, full-throated, free market, free enterprise capitalist. Okay, we should applaud free enterprise. We should sing from the hills the benefits while we fix the negatives, as opposed to denigrate the whole thing.
Or we could just screw it up and default.
Yeah, not as long as I'm alive, boy. We're going to keep fighting this one.
Let's turn to politics. You famously said just a few years ago, 2019, my heart is Democratic, my brain is kind of Republican. Our country, our politics have changed a lot since then. I wonder if that's still the case.
It is still the case. I think we could do a better job of lifting up all of our citizens. I've already mentioned education and work skills and stuff like that. I think we have to be a little more rational about the world. Free enterprise is a wonderful thing. You know, free market capitalism, properly regulated, has lifted 1 billion people out of poverty. We've got to educate the American public how important it is, and that the foundation of the strength of America is the strength of the economy.
What does that mean? My heart is Democratic, my brain is Republican. What's leading Jamie Dimon right now? His heart or his brain?
I'm usually led by my heart, but my brain part is saying,
So the Democrats.
if we're going to spend money, we should spend it wisely. It's not enough to say, oh, we're going to spend all this money building highways. How many miles, at what cost, in what time period? It's not enough to talk about being green, but we can't get permits to build solar, wind, or pipelines, which would be green because gas is going to replace coal. And we're just not completely rational about sophisticated, comprehensive policy. And I think the Republicans probably have that a little bit better.
A little bit better,
Yeah.
the Republicans right now. Speaking of the Republican Party, the front runner for 2024 is former President Donald Trump. He has been indicted and faced criminal charges this week. Do you expect that to have any kind of impact, adverse impact on the economy, all this turmoil?
Not really. You know, if you look at America, the 325 million Americans, 165 million go to work every day, and their primary concern is their family, their community, their kids, and things like that. So I don't think that's going to change the course of the economy that much.
You were on President Trump's business council until it was dissolved. Do you think a second Trump term would be good for the U.S. economy?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Why?
All right. So she's trying to sneak in some political points. And, this is not a political show. We talk about politics only from an investing standpoint. And from an investing standpoint, he said that there was going to be some short-term pain, but we're going to come out of it. And if anyone should know how we're going to come out of it, when we're going to come out of it, and if we're going to be stronger, is the CEO of Chase Bank. So thanks for coming on. I'm so happy that, we have a outlook that is optimistic, short-term pain, but on the other side, we're going to be much stronger for it. Thank you guys for coming in. As always, stay grinding and salute.